once you do the introductions and I introduce myself, then I'll just answer any questions that you throw at me. Okay.
Okay, sweet. We're live now. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. This has been a topic all over the news, as many have seen or many will learn. It's really regarding the National Home for Disabled Volunteer Soldiers, the West LA VA here in Los Angeles. We have This is the second Soldiers Home stream. We do have a live chat, so make sure to let us know that you can hear us, you could see us, and if you have any questions, drop them in the live chat, and we will start this convo. We're here with veteran Francisco Juarez, an NHDVS advocate. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here.
Thank you, Senate. It's an
Uh,
honor to be brought on here.
Absolutely. Well, it's an important topic that you have a ton of knowledge and firsthand experience fighting. So, if you would you mind introducing yourself for those watching?
Sure, sure. Well, folks, my name is Francisco Juarez. I'm a veteran who served. Um, I was born and raised on the West Side, and now on the East Side. Actually, I'm east of East LA. I've been an advocate uh, challenging this land theft of the Pacific Branch Home, National Home for Disabled Veterans in Los Angeles since the early 80s. I'm a husband to Clara, a lovely wife, a lovely and understanding wife who puts up with this late night calls and grabbing the phone when I want to write down a thought or something. I'm a father of Gacho and Risa and Yolanda and Benny to some extent, Gary and Randy. I'm a grandfather. I'm a great grandfather to a little guy named Tristan, who's just a ball of energy and brings life into her life was draining. And that happens when you advocate and nothing, it seems nothing gets done. So I'm happy to have all these folks in my life, and I'm happy to have met Senate and Ryan Thompson, who was on the blog number one, I believe.
Right, he was with us on home stream, Soldiers Home Stream #1, correct? And I think
Yeah,
he'll be joining us at some point as we discuss here as well.
well, that's basically who I am. What I what I advocate is simple: to enforce the terms, conditions, the spirit, and intent of the deeds that established the Pacific Branch National Home for Disabled Veterans. And I said it right. I said deeds plural. Um, there was a vision that existed among the benefactors to permanently maintain this land as a home for disabled veterans. And one of the separate deeds was for beachfront property in Santa Monica. And in the advocacy, um, well, I mentioned that I've been advocating since the early 80s. Well, that was due in part, in large part, to the World War II veterans of the Veteran Service Organization I belong to, who tasked the younger veterans, uh, that was us at the time, the Vietnam veterans, they tasked us to keep up the challenge, to keep up the advocacy against illegal uses of the land and the buildings at the home. These World War II veterans are amazing. They used to challenge it. There was no computers there. They weren't computer literate. There were no cell phones or anything like that. But they would go right up to the office of the directors or whoever it was, and they told them like it was. This is veteran land, and that what's happening over there doesn't belong here. They knew what the intentions of the land were, and they made sure that they that it was enforced. Um, as they began to grow older and look like me and die, they handed it off. They handed that challenge off to us and told us, you have to save that land. Don't let it go. And I imagine that at that time, the land grabbers this isn't the first generation of land grabbers we're dealing with today, but they're more sophisticated in their use of technology and smoke and mirrors. Uh, I've heard it called. So the we were seemed to be losing ground when we hooked up with folks like Sennett and Ryan and others, and people who are experts in forensic research and were able to help us by bringing us factual information, FOIA information downloaded from the internet, copies of emails between this bureaucrats and developers and things like that, and it all connects the dots, and it all tells a very sad story. And that sad story is that it appears that there's a lot of wealthy people and billionaire developers that are looking at that land and speculating how they're going to use it once they steal it. And to hell with the veterans, the disabled veterans. They'll take care of them some other way. They'll take care of them any way as long as they're not on that land, and therein lies the what we have been advocating for: save that land for its intention for its intended use. And it's a struggle. It's a struggle because number one, they don't want to acknowledge the truth, which is to say, they don't acknowledge us. They they have their meetings, they have their dog and pony shows, they have their Federal Register entries, but never do they put anything uh, as uh, as far as our comments that we've taken to them. They're not. It's not as if they don't know that they're doing wrong because we've told them that over and over again. First, we arrived with our hat in our hand and asking them, hey, maybe you didn't know this, but the deed says that this is the way the land's supposed to be used. And that wasn't the case at all. We don't have our hat in our hand anymore. We're demanding, and we're declaring, and we're exposing. And this effort, this blog, number two, I'm so happy to be part of it because I hope that others join. There's a lot of other advocates. I hope they join and come in and start informing you, the listener, how bad things really are. Uh, don't let anybody fool you. There may be a handful of hand-picked veterans that they just love to hear from, and those veterans rubber stamp everything that is put before them, but they're really not helping save the home. Um, Maybe I overdid it on the introduction there.
No, no. I think it was perfect. I think I wanted to ask, if you had any personal relationship with the soldiers' home beyond advocating for it. If you'd want to share anything in that
Oh
regard.
yeah. When I returned and I got married, I used to take my son over there on the Sawtelle side of it, and used to have him on the back of the bicycle. I'd ride the bicycle from the apartment we managed down the street and over there and let him run around on the knoll right there. And I found that it you could go there and find a quiet spot and it helped me calm myself. I had a lot of stuff on my mind having come back from Vietnam, and it helped me that way. And then meeting veterans there as they would walk by, and they'd say, well, you can come here and tell them about, what's going on in your head, stuff like that. So I finally did. And that was just when the VA started with their computer system. And they gave me the original C card or whatever it was. And then they gave me they arranged for me to see a doctor. I remember his name was Abrams, psychologist. Nice guy, nice guy. And he got me to open up, and then it was determined that I had PTSD. And I don't know what happened, Senate. Maybe it scared me away, but I said, okay, I got PTSD. Thank you very much, and I'm out of here.
Mm.
And I went out and I acted out, things that a lot of veterans came back and did, and weren't the best things, but um, finally got myself back into the system, and um, that was where I received service there in downtown LA. So in the process of working on myself and my health and my sanity, I still kept advocating because the World War II veterans impressed upon me that this is a very unique home. There's nothing like it in the world. And even in the system of the old soldiers' homes, there wasn't a deed written like the deed for the Pacific Branch National Home for Disabled Veterans. And because of the wording in that deed, the land grabbers haven't been able to really steal the land by buying it. But as I said earlier, they have become more sophisticated, and they're finding ways of doing it that I don't think we would have ever figured out if not for the forensic research that's been brought to us that demonstrates how they manipulate things uh, to bury the intended land use and the deeds under new acts of Congress, under uh, land use policy, under uh, contracts with third parties. It's just a myriad of things that they're trying to bury the deeds with. But our advocacy is holding up those deeds, and we will always hold up those deeds because, well, imagine your home. And if you own a property and you have a deed, and you come home one day and somebody's sitting in your living room and another group sitting in your kitchen and somebody else is over there in your laundry room, and they go, well, we didn't touch your bedroom. We still have that, and we're here for your goods, know, and that's what's happened. That's what's happened. There's only one stakeholder in this game, and that's called the disabled veteran. And that's who we're trying to protect, and we're trying to maintain the home so that future veterans will have the same home to come home to, because there will be war. Not,
I,
I'm not glorifying war. I'm just telling you there will be war. I mean, it's the history.
regarding the stakeholder, because we've seen lots of different things that say stakeholder for people who uh, don't seem to be, sometimes even non-veterans. Um, the stakeholder of the soldiers' home, is it just a veteran, or is it just a disabled veteran, or is it an unemployed homeless veteran? Uh,
If
in your
you're
understanding.
unemployed, if you're homeless or unhoused, they have a home, just somebody else took the keys right now. But if you're unhoused or you're unemployed, you're disabled to a certain point. If you're service connected uh, and rated, you're disabled. If you've been injured in combat, you're disabled. If you're suffering from PTSD, you're disabled. If your acting out over the years has led you to become addicted to drugs or alcohol or some foreign substance, you're disabled. And the intention was of the home was to provide a home atmosphere so that a man or woman can come there and within the comfort of that home heal himself or herself and go back out into society as a contributing citizen. Um, that has been totally turned upside down, beginning with the Metro Rail coming in, boring underground with the intention of being done by the 2028 Olympics. Brentwood encroaching upon the land, wanting to become the Brentwood City in there. The latest proposals is for a hotel and a 450,000 square foot mega mall. You know, this this is repurposing the land, which is another way of stealing it, and it's not it's not what the vision was. So I I'm happy to tell you that the advocacy that I work with um, has put enough pressure on them to make them feel uneasy. But we need more. We need more help. We need more of the people because it's only the people are going to solve this.
Right. Absolutely. And I wanted to, and we, by the way, we have NHDVS advocate Ryan Thompson joining us. I wanted to clarify because I was talking to uh, former Santa Monica Mayor Bobby Shriver, and he tried to say that a bunch of stakeholders, made some comments in the past. And anyways, Ryan sent me some documents of those actual comments, and I was reading them, and I saw some familiar names like Tess Banco or Anthony Allman, who seemed to be referring to themselves as stakeholders. So uh, it was the idea that I was just trying to clarify there, um, in particular.
Well, those individuals that you mentioned may be stakeholders. If they're disabled, they're service connected, and but Brentwood School is not a stakeholder. But the Brentwood community is not a stakeholder. Those happen to be the neighborhood that's adjacent to the home footprint. But the home footprint was there when there was no Brentwood community. There was no Westwood community. So um, they grew up around us, uh, and the wording of the deed it makes it clear: permanently maintained as a home for disabled veterans or for disabled volunteer soldiers, which it would mean veterans today.
Right. Ryan, did you want to share anything? We also,
Hey,
we're
Ryan.
doing the Soldiers Home stream number 2. We wanted to give context to a lot of the recent news, by the way, of the UCLA baseball field getting the lock on it, and go over some of the actual facts, the judge's orders, and kind of what it all means, looking more in depth at it. So, did you have any thoughts or comments?
I do. I actually I was thinking of the most helpful I could be on this is kind of giving the long analysis of some of the recent news as to what's going on in that case. So if there's a chunk of time that's best to do that in, let me know.
We certainly can start now. Absolutely.
Okay. So I just want to go through the contrast between a lot of the press that we're seeing on the Powers v. McDonough lawsuit and the truth, but also the contrast
Start now.
between the two different types of press in the Powers v. McDonough suit. The press for uh, the general public, and then the press for the privileged. the self-proclaimed privileged class in this matter. So what I mean by that is an article that recently came out, well, I guess earlier today or yesterday, in the Daily Journal. And the Daily Journal is kind of like a magazine that's just distributed throughout the legal community in California. And it was founded over 100 years ago by the California State Bar. And then a guy named Charlie Munger took it over in the mid 80s. Charlie Munger is the business partner of one of the attorneys that defrauded veterans out of the Valentini v. Shinseki judgment, named Ron Olson. Munger is his partner. They're both, Munger actually recently died, but they are both board directors and vice chairman and/or vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway, which is the largest real estate company in the United States. So anyway, today the Daily Journal put out an article that was titled, or yesterday, that's titled "Judge Closes UCLA Stadium on VA Grounds, Gives Private School More Time." And I'm wondering, I emailed that to you, sent it. Is there a way to pull that up? Or do I have to try to figure out how to screen share it?
No, I just got it up. I think that's what I was trying to do
Okay.
as you
Oh,
were
sorry, I don't
speaking.
have my
No,
screen
you're
cropped.
good. And I'm gonna fix the cropping on the article as well right now. Just give me a half a second here.
Cool.
1 second.
So
Boom.
in the article here, I've highlighted a couple of sections, but obviously it says gives private school more time, and then what it says here is the tenants were not parties to the case, but have appeared to plead for more time to make a deal. So first thing I want to bring up here is this lawsuit that's happening right now. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to even call it a lawsuit. I think it's like romper room or something in a federal courtroom. Because what's happened is a complaint was filed in this lawsuit. And it's beyond the scope of the discussion tonight, but I have a lot of problems with that complaint in terms of it not really defining what veterans' rights and entitlements are on the land. But it was better than what's being asked for now. A complaint was filed to start this lawsuit, Powers v. McDonough, right, in 2021 or 22. And then last month, a day after the parties, namely the parties are supposed to be the supposed class of disabled homeless veterans, and then the VA officials. Those are the two parties in the case. Those two parties rested their case last month. They said, that's it. We're done with trial. That was our case. It's time for the judge to rule a judge and make a decision and orders. And what happens instead is 1 to 2 days later, the attorneys that are screwing the plaintiffs, that are screwing over the veterans, disabled homeless veterans, and deceiving them, in my substantial opinion, to say the least, they turn in a new document. And they call it their new findings of facts and proposed conclusions, or something like that. After the trial is over, after they say they rest the case, they turn in this whole new document and it says, actually, we're asking for this instead. Forget what we're asking for in the lawsuit that we just had a trial for. Now we're asking for this. And of course, in there for the first time is one of the things we're asking for that we never talked about that we wanted before in our request for relief of the complaint is a mega mall, right? Gigantic mega mall that our new expert witness for veterans, billionaire mega mall developer Steve Soberoff, has the plan for. And of course, that plan is to take the overwhelming majority of the 1,000 units or so of permanent supportive housing that they falsely promised when they did the fake settlement that never existed in 2015, lower that by about 200 units, take out the units that they finally built after 10 years. You got about 750 left. Well, instead of doing that, we're now going to make them, bigger sheds with toilets and sinks. We're going to push those out to radiological toxic wasteland that's been found by several environmental studies consistently over the past, 2 decades. So we can clear the land and build this gigantic mega mall. And hey, maybe it'll have a hotel with a bar. By the way, if that hotel doesn't have a bar, you're still going to have all these restaurants that'll be serving alcohol too in your town center. So this whole bait and switch happens. And now there's kind of this weird, uncanny limbo of just anything goes. And suddenly the judge, Carter, is bringing in Brentwood School and UCLA, who are not parties. And their lawyers are coming in and they're negotiating and they're pleading. Okay. And we're gonna show you how they're doing that right now. So here you have in this Daily Journal article right here, right? On the left here, the guy that looks like he's the host of Fantasy Island, that's Lewis Skip Miller, who's representing Brentwood School, right? That's his lawyer. Big picture right there. The man who saved the day for Brentwood School yesterday. And then the snagglepuss looking guy over here on the right is Roman M. Silberfeld, who, just like Judge Carter, just like Mark Rosenbaum, just like the special master, whatever guy, Weston, are all at the University of California, at the Irvine campus at a law institute that's being funded by Weingart for a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And of course, Steven Soboroff, the expert witness for veterans, he was the chair, the trustee, the board director, one of the three over the last 22 years for Weingart. So it says in this article here that the judge halted an order to shut down the private Brentwood School, their athletic center, because it is a unique and core area that could benefit both veterans and students if divvied up appropriately, he said. If divvied up, like what, pirates' booty? Right? And didn't we just have a whole lawsuit and 2 OIG audits and a judgment of a civil rights case for veterans that was ruled on in 2013, and that all have said over and over and over again, the only fact that matters, that Brentwood School is illegal, that they are not benefiting veterans, that they're full of shit. And here it is. This judge has got a new idea. You know what? Hold on. There's this unique and core, whatever that means. No one's defining it. There's this unique and core way that maybe it could benefit veterans, as if that's a new idea. And the way that we do that is we divvy it up, divvy the land up, right? This is Judge Carter talking. And it says it all comes down to the properties we're talking about. Or sorry, second page says, get this. This is a quote of Judge Carter. The court has no intention to arbitrarily take Brentwood land when, in fact, it could be used by the school and the veterans, Carter said during the hearing. Somehow, I'm looking for a 1-year lease, working in good faith, no surprises. And I would hope that the real accommodation is the veterans entering this discussion. Now, I don't know if he means he's hoping the veterans are going to accommodate this whole thing with more death by veteran homelessness at taxpayers' expense, or if he means something else. I know at the end of the day, that's what it all means. But I thought this was a judge, not a guy who's hoping and wheeling and dealing with the host of Fantasy Island to create something new for this $70 million a year nonprofit land fraud called Brentwood School that doesn't seem to be able to find anywhere in that $70 million or whatever a year revenue a dime to be able to spend anything other on taxpayers' money to build all of its illegal shit at the soldiers' home. And, if there's a way to come up with an accommodation so that the veterans have it in a reasonable period of time, and Brent would have it in a reasonable period of time, we already know what the fucking real reasonable period of time is. Forever. Permanently maintained by the U.S. federal government as a home for disabled and homeless veterans across this nation, not in Service District 1 of Los Angeles City, or whatever Jonathan Sharon says, or whatever Landgrab says. What the fuck is this judge talking about? Not anything a judge should be talking about. It's more like something a corrupt racketeer would be talking about at this stage of the game. And I'm sorry if I'm being assertive here, but I don't know if one can be assertive enough when we're talking about people's lives. We're talking about taxpayers having to feel like shit for giving their taxes up so these assholes can proclaim themselves elitists and kill veterans with homelessness on our dime and build their shit with our money. So, it goes on, it says, the order voided leases the VA holds with UCLA, Brentwood School, Safety Park, and Bridgeland Resources. Well, guess what, Judge Carter? The truth is, Judge Otero voided all of those leases back in 2013. Okay? And there's a big lie about some kind of settlement. It's never happened. That's all been confessed on record. Even the DOJ has responded to an FOIA saying they've got no records of it. So this has already been adjudged illegal. That's nothing new, right? The only thing new here is he's sitting around like a pirate in a judge robe talking about how to divvy up the booty of land. And maybe we'll have some special master determine what's reasonable for veterans to have it. Like, maybe they can work out there someday, right? It says the third parties, such as UCLA and Brentwood School, were not parties to the original lawsuit. However, representatives for each appeared before Carter during injunctive relief hearings this week. Well, is there a new lawsuit? Aren't we still in the original lawsuit of this matter, or did they fail to tell us they have some kind of shadow lawsuit going on? I don't know what it is, but these are not parties. They're criminals. It says UCLA's proposal regarding how the land on which Jackie Robinson Stadium and its practice field could be repurposed. It says Carter rejected their proposal, right? He sent them back to the drawing board. So let me get this straight. So you illegally use land, you conspire against disabled homeless veterans to the point of their death in great numbers until you've caused this to be the national capital of veteran homelessness. And you make every taxpayer in America feel like shit by having them pay for it unwantedly. And you established all of this truth and that it's illegal. And so your answer is to go say, okay, UCLA, go come up with a new plan? Fuck that. Who the hell is this guy? I mean, what is this monkey in a courtroom? Come up with a plan? Hey, crook, you're a crook. Come up with a plan to do it differently. No. UCLA, get the fuck off the VA. Period. That's the law. It says, until UCLA proposes a position on how the 10 acres it currently occupies can be put to use, such that the provisions of services to veterans is a predominant focus of the activities of the regents at the campus, Carter wrote in the order. Again, what is this guy doing? It's not what a judge does if they're ethical. It's not what the law says to do, right? I mean, do you see homeless veterans being picked up and charged with crimes, and then a judge says to them, okay, what do you want to do from here? How would you like to do things now? I mean, we're at a point where homeless veterans aren't committing any crimes and getting put in jail or getting put into involuntary holds and beds because people are embarrassed that they never built any of the housing they charged us all for to house those veterans in. So they're trying to hide them in beds, hide them in 5150s, right? Hide them in sheds. Were these veterans given a choice of what they want to do next? No, they never are. Because they don't give a fuck. These people are elitists. They're racketeers. They're crooks. It says, Carter also threatened a similar fate to Brentwood School, unless the school came up with a plan that would allow both to simultaneously use the area. So, hey, veterans, disabled homeless veterans, don't say a word. Brentwood School, you come up again with a plan because you're criminals. Because in Carter's court, if you're a criminal, you've earned the right to be privileged on our dime. So, it says, Carter was more open to not shutting it down after hearing a presentation from Miller Barondess LLP founding partner, Fantasy Island host Louis R. Skip Miller, an attorney representing the school. Well, isn't that nice? A guy who's not even people who aren't even a party to the case can come in and change a judge's mind on a case after a trial about an issue that was never to do with this before. And that says we really need that for the students, and it's also very beneficial for the exclusive use of the veterans, their attorney said. Who cares what they need? Because everything they need is illegal. I mean, and it's also very beneficial for the veterans. Did we not just spend every year since 1972 proving over and over again that that's a fucking lie? That's killing people with homelessness and wasting taxpayers' money? It all comes down to the properties we're talking about, right? It says the football field, the track, the pavilion, the aquatic center, the tennis courts. That's what we call the core area. Without that core area, our students have nowhere to exercise. That's terrible. We better kill more veterans with homelessness, disabled veterans, so the kids can still exercise because their parents can only afford to pay $50,000 a year tuitions to send them to a shit school in the first place. And they need a place to exercise. And by the way, it says without that core area, the veterans don't get to benefit from it. Well, why don't you tell me what benefit they've been getting from it all this time? Brentwood School does not provide any benefit. That is made up. It's nothing. It's a lie. It's a deadly lie. Robbins Kaplan LLP partner Roman M. Silberfeld, for the veterans, told Carter they could add a provision for a term of multiple years. On the part of the VA, not the veterans, the VA, everybody, right, on every side of this, except for the disabled homeless veterans, has a right to something. The VA, with a reasonable notice, could back out of that if they wanted to, that multi-year agreement that they're trying to put together in that courtroom. That's supposedly a case for the rights of disabled homeless veterans in accordance with our laws. And it says, we asked for an increase in the rent. We asked for Brentwood to continue the services. We asked that Brentwood continue to maintain the property. And we asked that Brentwood make a cash payment in support of this new arrangement. A fucking cash payment in Roman Silberfeld's goddamn pocket. And you know how I know that? Because they already tried to pull off a settlement with the oil company that would have cut Roman and his lawyer buddies $200,000 cash. That's how I know he wants that in his pocket. That's one of many reasons I know that. So then Carter goes on, purportedly in this article, to say, UCLA, you know, they're gonna get a 1-year revocable lease, right? So now let's all come to grips with reality here of what this padlock on a baseball diamond is. This padlock on a baseball diamond is a show. It's a show to take people who are so hopeful, their lives are depending on nothing remaining but hope, and taking advantage of that last vulnerable hope and putting a padlock on there to make them feel good and not realize they're being fucking duped again. So UCLA can come up with a plan to take the padlock off and stay. Here you've got a unique situation, and I've got to take that into account, Carter added. I do recognize this core area that you need. Who cares why? He just does. Within the school area that this is, obviously, one of the last areas the court would consider. How would the court benefit by arbitrarily placing the track, the pool as the court's first priority when it's a benefit to veterans? Again, does this guy have fucking amnesia? Did something come into Carter's body? We just had a lawsuit where even he, but just for the purposes of political theater, just reiterated how illegal Brentwood School is and how they aren't doing anything for veterans. Now, after the trial is over, after the court reporter isn't called back, right? And this is something else that's funny, right? We have hearings going on right now after the trial. This Privileged Lawyers of California magazine, they somehow got all the quotes and transcripts from these hearings, apparently, with Carter's quotes, but the people sure as hell fucking didn't, right? The plaintiffs, the disabled homeless veterans whose lives depend on this across the nation, didn't. I didn't. I had to read this piece of shit to get this information. Carter scheduled the parties to return to his courtroom on October 2nd to provide updates. because they're buying time at the cost of people's lives and taxpayers' general welfare. So that's the reality of what we're dealing with here. Okay. There is no steak dinner. There is no pat on the back. There is no amount of death by homelessness for disabled veterans and no amount of billions of dollars of public funds that is worth this trash, that is worth this criminal racket. And we need to understand this is not a matter for a civil court. Crimes need to be prosecuted in federal criminal courts under the RICO Act for racketeering, because that's what this is. Okay? This is not a business dispute. There's no simple business dispute that kills disabled veterans with homelessness while treating them like shit and slandering them. So I want to go to a PDF I sent you, Senate, called BS Part 1 of Many. Do you have that?
Yep, I do.
Okay.
Let me see.
So we can open that up and go to page 1. What I want to start doing now is I want to make sure that we all understand with more detail from both a veteran's perspective, a federal law perspective, and a non-veteran community member's perspective as to what the hell is terribly wrong with Brentwood School. And I'm only going to go into a fraction of it, believe it or not. I want to start by showing on page 1 here, right? And on page 2, that, in fact, truly is the actual footprint, except for the beachfront annex of the National Soldiers Home. That is a fact, okay? And when you look at the second image there, that is that border projected over a satellite image from Google, so we understand what that footprint is. And on the next image on page 3, we're going to start seeing official maps over the years of that footprint of the Soldiers Home that are commissioned by governments, right? So that's page 3. Let's go to page 4.
Sorry.
You know, there's another one, and I'm going to blow up on page 5 there of it. So that blow up on page 5, and then you'll see it again on page 6 here. Stop on 6. It's right up above us.
Oh,
page 6.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going up one more.
Mm-hmm.
There. So that is a big chunk of 200 acres or so of Soldiers Home that's already been stolen for now. And this is to help us begin to understand all of Brentwood School is on stolen Soldiers Homeland. Every fucking square millimeter of that East Campus, all of it. Not just the track, illegal leases, and all that crap. Every single bit of it. If you go to page 9, you'll see that, you know, at some point in the late 60s, the county of Los Angeles started pretending that it was county land there in that section. And they started cutting it off, except for that little tooth you see right there, right at Chiotte Street. So then if you go to page 21, we start to see forged deeds. Starting in, what year is this one? The first one here, I can't read the year there. It's just before 1972 though. So what happens here in the early 1970s is a school called the Urban Military Academy had been illegally leasing some land from the National Soldiers Home to run their school. The reason they were there is Mary McDowell, the woman who had founded and was running the school, had owned or had been financing land over in Hollywood on Wilcox, running the school, and she went belly up on the mortgage and couldn't pay it anymore. It got foreclosed on. So she moved the school over to the Soldiers Home and got an illegal land use agreement to do that. They were there for a number of years. So then she passes away, and she was kind of really she was really the one who was doing a lot of the work to really run the school effectively for their own intents and purposes. And so when she passes away, you'll see here on this page and the next one. What happens at that point is her husband and his mistress then forge a deed and fabricate that they own the land that they are illegally whatever from the soldiers' home. And that is why there is no actual original copy of any deed, because none exists. They're lying, right? And between pages 21 and 24, what we're looking at here is these fraudulent title claimers, right? McDowell's husband and his mistress, they fabricate that they have the land, and then they hand it over to a guy named Marty Ziegler, I think his name is, who's like no one really understands how this guy makes all his money. He's going back and forth between the Soviet Union and Brentwood all the time doing deals. They give the land to him in a company that he's created called Educational Sponsors. And then Educational Sponsors then takes it and hands it over to a company called Brentwood School. And stay right there on that page. Right there, you are looking at the parcel of land they're talking about. Now look at this closely. That is a lot less than the land that they are lying that they own right now. Okay? So if you go to page 29, you'll see what they start doing here is they start growing by various illegal transactions and means. 29, sorry.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
One down from that.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. So here you see in the county database, right? Like they start growing the parcel out. They start moving down the hill, right? And they say, okay, now we own this, right? And so little by little over the years, they take a little chunk here, a little chunk there, a little chunk there. The last couple chunks they took were in something in 2016 that they did between 2016 and 2020 called the Education Master Plan. The Education Master Plan was somehow something that covered the whole athletic facilities that they illegally developed there, and then some, which is VA land, still under VA stewardship, almost all of it, right? But somehow they have a guy named Jose Huizar, who's the chairman of the county's Planning and Land Use Commission, handle this education master plan, which is illegal as all hell, everything about it. And he and Brentwood School and their law firm, which are also their lobbyists locally, Armbruster, Goldsmith, and Delvac, kind of just sneak in that, oh, all this shit's ours too. And then they make one big combined parcel now of the land that they're faking that they own, which is a lot more than this 8 acres or whatever that they first stole in the early 70s. If we go to page, sorry, I'm just looking here. 28. We can see, page 28. So it'll be Brentwood School settles dispute with neighbors. So you can see here as far back, I mean, almost from the get-go when they show up and start operating their illegal school, right? They're already getting busted, barely moved in, for making porno movies at the school after the kids are gone. Literally. They're making fucking porno films at the school when the kids leave. I mean, I would hate to even fathom what the hell after hours programs were over there if I was a student. They, if you go to page 31, keep going. Yep, you can see, all the way back here. I think this is from the 80s or something. There's already a bunch of financial fraud going on, where millions of dollars are getting stolen from the endowment of the school, right? You can see here on page 33, yep, there. Nope, one down. Charitable foundations benefit from Milken's junk bonds, right? The Milken family, ever since before Milken went to prison for dealing junk bonds, has been involved intimately with funding this land grab called a private school. Okay. You can see on the very next page, page 34, what happens in what is this, 1990 or something like that? After the environmental studies come in and show that there's radiological waste where these kids are running around on those athletic fields, the head of the school sends a letter to the head of the VA though in building 218 at the time and says, oh wait, hold on. No, I'm sorry. This is something different. This is talk about generous people, right? This is 1990. They sent a letter explaining to the then Stephen Braverman or Robert Merchant of the VA in Building 218 back then. They are so kind. They're going to donate and construct for free a bunch of tennis courts, tennis facility for the veterans. And if you continue reading that letter, the only condition is that as soon as they're done building it, they get to keep it and the veterans can't use it. Literally. If we go to
And is that what ended up happening with those courts in particular?
that is correct. Yeah, their tennis facilities. That's the birth of their illegal tennis facilities. Then we have, if we go to, there's a lot of interesting stuff in here. Oh, one thing I'll just show you here. If you go to page 116, and by the way, Senate, I'll provide you, or if you can put this document up in a link after this, in case people want to download it and look at it, this compendium of evidence. This is just to show you, there's a bunch of pages of this, but this is just to show you proof. For, 15 years or so, Brentwood School, despite making all this money, is getting bonds and financing from California state programs that are supposed to be for needy schools. They've gotten over $70 million now to pay for everything that they've illegally built at the Soldiers Home. I think there's a 70-something million dollar school, but they don't have enough money to build anything, so they got to take these bonds on these programs for needy schools to build all their facilities while they steal the land from disabled homeless veterans. If we go to page, it's funny how they couldn't figure this shit out in court, right? All these lawyers and this judge. But I think that's what happens when you have no ethics. If you go to page 211.
You mean Steven Soberoff didn't have these documents?
No, because they didn't want to see them. So they don't have anything they don't want to see. Page 211. Okay, this is what I was thinking before. So here in 2007, right, you have like the third environmental study or whatever that the government does that finds radiological waste. So now you've got the head of the school sending a letter to the secretary of the VA at the time, Nicholson, saying, excuse me, bitch, you need to remove that study and say that shit that you found was never there. Thank you very much. That's pretty much exactly what that says. And then Brentwood School sent a letter to the parents saying, nothing to see here. That was all a big mistake. Those veterans, they never know what they're talking about. There's no radiological waste here, so come on back. You can get radiated while you're playing football. By the way, former VA Secretary Nicholson, you know what he is now? He's a partner in the lobbying firm for Brentwood School at the Washington, D.C. office, James R. Nicholson.
Should we pull up that document?
I don't have that on me, but if you look up in Google.
No, the lobbying, annual lobbying.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, sure. You want to show that right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so right there, this is just a graph that's a brief overview, in fact. Because a lot of people think Brentwood School they keep saying Brentwood School is a school, right? It's for the kids. We're just doing a school for the kids here. Well, I'm going to show you what the for the kids means in a second, but let me show you what else they're doing. Every single penny of all of this lobbying money, almost $1 million, none of which has ever been reported on their federal tax returns, 990s, because they're a nonprofit, which means that every one of these years is a federal criminal felony. All of this lobbying is lobbying against disabled homeless veterans' rights and entitlements to their National Soldiers Home. In fact, that is the truth. I swear, under penalty of perjury. Go look for yourself in the congressional record. This is not just a school for kids. It's a fucking land grab that doesn't care whatever life is in the way of it, no matter how vulnerable that life is. So now if we go to page 332, that is former Secretary Robert McDonald, who, while he was bullshitting veterans that he had settled a case by throwing out their judgment and having some new way forward that's going to figure out something that's a popular term again called an exit strategy for Brentwood School. Well, there he is right after that, delivering their commencement address. You go to the next picture. There, 2 years later, is Eric Garcetti, still a free man, probably not for long, delivering their commencement address after Bob McDonald. If you go to page 425, so here you have, a lot of us are familiar with this. You go to the next series of page, over these series of pages. This is the OIG finding that Brentwood School is illegal. Again, just like the court had. And that's important because when the OIG finds this, the statutes, the Public Law 114-226, the West LA Leasing Act of 2016, that Judge Carter has to know and says he knows, and I know he knows, says that when the OIG finds that, no new leases, no new nothing, no new land use agreements until the recommendations are satisfied to fix the problems. Recommendations haven't been satisfied. Carter pretends like he can't even see it, even though he brings it up in transcripts of hearings at trial. Again, like I think around page 443 or whatever, 2021, OIG reiterates Brentwood School is illegal, somewhere in the pages there. By the way, in these findings, they also find that the $800,000 or more of in-kind contributions that Brentwood School is lying that is something for veterans is just them putting a different label on all their upkeep, maintenance, and operational expenses for the school, literally. If we go to page, God, I can't stand these fucks. Oh yeah, let's go to page let's see page 629.
629.
Yeah. Okay, so what we're looking at here over this series of pages, while the Los Angeles School District was on a lockdown and working parents had to start teaching their kids at home and work at the same time because of COVID-19. The health officer was telling Brentwood School they didn't have to. Their kids could still go to school. They could play contact football. Why don't you go ask some veterans that were there then what they were doing, locked up in the domiciliary? All right. Here you can see starting on page, what page is this? 647. These are pictures and calendars and everything that's happening during COVID. Well, everyone's on lockdown. The fuck is this shit? Let's look at page 649. Keep one more down. That's what everyone in the domiciliary was handed, telling them there's a new agreement. If they don't like it tough shit, they're locked up at the same time. Every day. 15 minutes outside, supervised. Sorry, let's go to page 651, 652, something like that. One more down. Here you can see that this is more of the waivers for Brentwood School at that time. Get out of COVID free. That's what the series of pages are if you just keep going down. Um, second.
It goes to show when you have money what you can do.
As long as you have very corrupt criminals and racketeers, right? Because you can have money in this country, right? You can make money, right? You can be capitalist or socialist, whatever it is you're going to be. You can find your way to make money. Just do it legally. Don't go stealing a bunch of money and breaking a bunch of laws because you want people to think you made fair money because you have such a fucking chip on your shoulder about looking wealthy without having to do anything for it legally. Sorry, we're going to get to something here in a second. That is a lot of pages. Sorry.
No worries. There's some comments, by the way, in the
Okay, hold on. I just want
chat.
to get through. Okay, almost done.
Oh yeah, no worries. They were just
Sorry.
saying
And I'm
that
going to
the
shut up for the whole time. Okay, let's go to page. Here, page 763. So a lot of people don't know that one of Brentwood School's executives was involved with the college admissions scandal, was busted by the FBI, went to prison for a little while. I mean, what kind of school ethics is that when you're just buying people's way into college without them having to work to get into college? What are you teaching kids for $50,000, $60,000 a year? If you go to page 769. Yeah, what's the title now? Going up? Okay, exclusive Brentwood School under fire for alleged racist incidents. Brentwood School has been in the news, I don't know, maybe 6, 7, 8 times in the last 10 years for significantly or substantially evidential racist problems. Okay. Um, and I'm not going to get into what they are. I'll tell you one of them, right? At one point, one of them, kids were complaining because the 4 or 5 token African American students were saying that when they were having theater class, all the white kids would do, all the non-black kids would do, one play, but they would have to sing "Jump Down, Turn Around, Pick a Bale of Cotton." I'm not kidding.
unbelievable.
If you go to page 775. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, that's relevant, but not. We don't have to talk about that right now, even though it's just not enough. Sorry. Let's go to page 777. Okay, so this is another thing. There's you've even got parents at the school who start suing the school because of religious discrimination cases. I think they settled that one. Let's go to page 783. This is a math teacher at the school. She gets busted for selling narcotics to her students. Goes to jail for a couple days. They decide to keep her around. Well, I'm not sure they should have kept her around because if you go to page 785, around 6 months later, she gets busted, eventually gets 5 years in prison or 4 years or whatever, because she's statutorily raping students over the course of a year or two all over the Soldiers' Home and her house when her husband's not in town and elsewhere. You go to page 787. That's a civil suit regarding the same case by the parents of that kid And if you go to, sorry, I'm looking for it here. In here somewhere, they talk about school
School what?
counselor.
I do read it says the Brentwood experience suffered by John Doe.
Yeah,
The
we're looking for something about a school counselor.
counselor.
Oh, here we go. Go to page 791 of this complaint. So what you'll notice that this complaint is about is the kid that's getting statutorily raped. The school counselor sets him up with the teacher. The kid comes, he's actually feeling suicidal for something and is going to talk with the counselor. The counselor literally says, why don't you go hook up with your math teacher, and brokers the deal.
Oh my God.
If you look at page 825, keep going down. This is a bill that was called HR 3848. It ended up passing, but the reason Francisco and I and a few others made sure it didn't pass in its original form through Congress and the NAACP is because Brentwood School had stuck in with their lobbyists a provision to remove all of the OIG, the VA OIG's oversight and powers over just the West LA VA property, National Soldiers Home, so they could get out of all the shit laws that they're fucking breaking. That was HR 3848. That was the original. So they went and they found a House representative in Oregon because they thought, oh, we're just looking and scouting the bills that are coming out of California. So maybe if we run this through like representatives in Oregon, we're not going to notice. And they tried to run it up the flagpole, and we killed it. I think we're almost done here. Sure, I think we are done. Just making sure. All tax returns. Yeah, if you go to page 1350, so these are some of the responsive documents to my Freedom of Information Act requests. You go through those. It's all talking about Stephen Braverman, Jennifer Yoshimaro, and the VCOAB board all negotiating and planning out how they're going to try to pitch and protect Brentwood School, as they do all the time, right? And then here on page 1361, that's Brentwood School getting a roughly $10 million PPP loan from two of their students at the time's dad, Stephen Mnuchin, while he was the Treasury Secretary of the United States of America. And they eventually had to give it back. This is just a small understanding of what Brentwood School is. This stuff about kids, first of all, they very clearly don't even fucking know how to educate kids. And I don't care if there's kids coming out of there talking about, well, academically, we're educated very well. Yeah, well, ethically, whatever other than whatever you've taught yourself, which I hope is a lot, you haven't gotten shit out of it because you aren't ethically educating kids that it's cool to let veterans die disabled and homeless or be raped or cheat the law or steal land. or steal money, steal bonds for needy schools. There is no ethics education. These are racketeers. They're shitholes. And honestly, for Judge Carter to be doing this in light of all these facts that he damn well knows, he's a shithole too. He has no place to fucking decide anything about this land. He needs to get the fuck off the bench. This is utterly disgusting. That's all I have to say about it.
Certainly a lot of info. Francisco.
Yeah, I got a question for you, Ryan. On the wall behind your head, there's an image. My old eyes can't make it out, but it looks like the logo for the NHDVS coalition.
Behind you, the white and black seal. You're muted.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Could you tell our listeners what's inscribed inside that and what the image is? I can see the image, and correct me if I'm wrong. I'll try. That's
Well. You gave it to me, and honestly, it would be more appropriate if you did.
yeah, that's the image of America on the right, um, giving a drink or a beverage or something refreshment to the Civil War veteran on the left, the Civil War amputee veteran on the left, and this was created after the Civil War, and inside the inscription inside is it says from a grateful nation for her defenders. And what is a veteran if not a defender of our nation? So um, the image of this was so powerful, and I have to give credit where credit's due. Janelle Wolves, our repository manager, found it in the halls of Congress, I believe. And this was used by the National Homes for Disabled Volunteer Soldiers for a while, and we've picked it up and we use it to show America, to show right-minded people that this is where we're coming from. I have to say that all of the information, how many pages is that documentation, Ryan? I heard
Well, this particular PDF is a little under 1,400 pages.
1,400 pages. This is what I mentioned earlier, folks, about the the need for the veteran family to work together. And if you have an uncle, if you have a dad, if you have a mom, an aunt that was in the service, a brother or sister or a friend, you're part of the veteran family. And we need to make sure that this sentiment that's in that image is maintained. That's a principle that the term sacred trust is founded upon. There was a recent president that used that term to tell the American Legion at their convention or something that the sacred trust would be protected. That's a better image of it. Um, Janelle did colorify that pixel by pixel. I think she did a great job. But I want to thank you, Ryan, because everything you said, was in sharp contrast to what that image it portrays, and I wanted folks to know about it, and I want you to know how much we appreciate you. I'm going to have to sign off, but I enjoyed this, and I hope I can come back to your number
Any,
3, if you will.
anytime. Always welcome. And thank you for hopping in here. Appreciate you big time.
Thank you both, and thank the folks that sent in their comments on the chat. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Francisco. Senate, I'm going to use the restroom real quick, and then whatever, I'm here for whatever is the rest. And if there are any comments or questions that you feel that I can help with at all.
Sweet. We'll be here. Wow, that was a lot. That was a lot of info. Good info. If you have any questions, let us know in the chat. We're gonna go through this a little bit longer. So let us know in the chat, and then we'll answer them, and then we'll wrap up Soldiers Home stream number 2. And we're gonna be doing these more regularly, more often. Let us know if you got any info out of this. Let us know if you have any questions. Let us know if you have any thoughts. If you want us to answer any questions about anything specific, maybe something in general, please reach out. Please message now. Please share the stream. Also, the stream will stay live on Kick. It'll stay live on YouTube. It'll stay live on X. So you could share those links with anybody who might find this information of value. Let's see. There are comments here. I don't see any questions necessarily. Let's see here.
And anything critical too is fine.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just gonna go through here. I guess my question is just in terms of what's next is like what Judge Carter's gonna give. What is next? Like he's saying in a week or in 6 months he's gonna talk about it more. Or
Well, I think a lot of it is up in the air,
mm-hmm.
and I think he's not even sure, because I don't think he was necessarily anticipating he was going to have to deal with more truth than they planned. So I think a lot of it is in the hands of the plaintiffs. I don't envy their position, and I don't think they're part of the problem. I think they're being fucked with. But I'm not sure. I don't know if anybody knows what's going to happen with that particular event. But I do know that Carter can also decide to do what's right. He can spend 5 minutes issuing a couple of federal eviction notices, and he can say, you know what, I'm going to have veterans decide how to plan their home. Again.
Right. I mean, Judge Otero, in less than 2 full pages, evicted 9 entities.
Judge Otero didn't say this is my opinion and kind of an order, and it's 114 pages of tough talk preceding a bunch of bullshit. He just said it's illegal, everything null and void, including any amendments there too.
And that's the wording. That's the solution.
Yeah. And, in reading the transcripts of the case, and I'm not sure a lot of people realize this, because sometimes I've heard these comments about, if you give a damn about the case, why don't you show up? And I can tell you, first of all, from an emotional standpoint, I don't show up because I can't even give that guy that amount of respect with the shit that I see coming out of there. But also, all the court reporters' transcripts are put online, and I do read them. I go over them. I spend a lot of time on it. I do this full time. And in one of those hearings during the actual trial, they brought up the deeds, and they did a whole scheme to try to create this bogus way of trying to say the deeds don't matter. And the story that they used was that I forget in what year, but a while back, there was a law that was made that said anything that was the National Home for Disabled Volunteer Soldiers um, any endowments of that, if there was any contention lodged in the federal government that some aspect of something to do with land of the National Soldiers Home wasn't allowing the federal government its full use and entitlement and enjoyment of that land, then, and it's actually not even clear, then it's possible that what follows could be interpreted as then you wouldn't have to abide by whatever those terms are. But that's not even necessarily clear. And it says that if one wanted to do that, only the President of the United States would have to formally issue that complaint and bring it forward and run it through Congress. Well, I don't see any President of the United States ever having the corrupt balls to do anything like that. And that's the point that Carter forgot to talk about, right? What president, David, did come out and say, I feel like we're not getting the full use and enjoyment of this land, which would have to be in context of it housing disabled homeless veterans. So I, as president of the United States, I'm going to say, fuck that deed. Show me that presidential order, David, because if you can't, who fucking cares? Doesn't matter. The deed is the deed. Okay. I mean, can I go into David Carter's home and say, listen, Dave, your deed really isn't that good anymore, but me and Senate are going to work on how we can come up with a plan to give you a reasonable amount of time to use this home while we do whatever we want with it. No. And that's just a deed between David Carter and a bank. We're talking about deeds to the federal government that were accepted by acts of Congress. So I know that they would like to pretend that the deeds don't matter, but the deeds prevail. And that's a public trust, not a charitable trust.
There's a comment made. If you I mean, I had one thought when I read this, but if it says, well, if you have evidence, you could give it to the DOJ, and then the lawyers would probably thank you, and you could listen to testimony and immediately call them out on the lies. I do want to say that in my experience being in courtrooms, it's would be totally not possible to call out anything from standing there. I mean, you could, but then you could be held in contempt, and it's definitely not the place to like do that in real time in a court proceeding. But wanted to read that comment and get your thought.
Yeah. Well, while I do agree, I mean, obviously you can't say anything in court, right? It's like, come on, sit down, shut up. David Carter will tell you when you can talk. And honestly, if the courtroom's running as it should under law, that's fine, because business of the court has to get done if it's ethical. But I do agree that absolutely this is relevant to the Department of Justice. But I don't think that's the civil side. I think that's the criminal side. And I can't imagine that they wouldn't be looking at this.
Right. Agree. There's a comment. We all know you care a ton, Ryan, and you're looking out for the underdog. In this, the media are advocating for the entities that do not need advocacy. And then the comment goes on to say, check it out. In 2019, 2021, and 2023, there were 0 HUD-VASH vouchers in LA City and County. Thought that was an interesting comment.
Yeah, that's a good point. I saw that, and I received that actually from Ruth, and that surprised me too, because here they are talking about, well, we don't need to house veterans at the Soldiers Home, where we need the mall and all this other illegal shit. But don't worry, we're going to get them all apartments with HUD-VASH, but there's no vouchers going out. Now they're starting to put vouchers out again. And there's a good motivation and a bad motivation as to why that happened, I think. The bad motivation is that, I mean, who knows? They should have been, right? If they're saying they're doing all this work and they're not providing any vouchers, that's bad. But the other thing that was going on simultaneously is these housing authorities in LA County and LA City were hoarding vouchers and not giving them out to the people that need them, because they were converting them for their developer friends to spend forever finishing their projects to make sure that they were guaranteed all the renters on the project-based vouchers. And so I know that there's a lot of contention about that and trying to stop that. So there were two things at work in that, is my opinion.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. Um, well, I think this overall was a super informative one. Oh, the comment was, but you could immediately after the testimony walk up to the opposing lawyers and let them know that you have information. Uh, if I'm not mistaken,
I know that the opposing attorneys, I know from personal experience, just to respond to this, to acknowledge this, I am personally aware that all the attorneys on both sides do in fact know all of this and they have for some time.
right. And I get your emails and I see you including as many people as you could to let them know about these facts and evidence.
Yeah, but that includes the DOJ side of it too. Even though I don't find them as applicable on the civil side, I am aware that they are aware.
There's comments here. HUD-VASH is a scam. No case management, zero accountability, and Step Up won't help with vocational or educational rehab. Janelle Wolves mentions veterans should not have to use HUD-VASH. Why are we paying rent for our own home?
Correct.
All good points.
HUD-VASH is designed for dealing with private landlords in the community. It actually was illegal. There was actually a law barring it from being at any VA facility for the very obvious reason that apparently we all understand. If you're already taxpayers are already paying for a soldier's home to have a budget to house veterans who don't have rent money, and that's all paid for them, and housing is being built for them by the VA at the time until it's stolen on these enhanced use leases and sabotaged. Why would you charge the taxpayers again to put a HUD-VASH program there and just create a big bunch of layers of bullshit to make it slower and harder to get housing? And then now let's look at the big elephant in the room that a racket's trying to pretend they still can't see. I mean, I'm not sure there's like a month that goes by at this point without Step Up and Shangri-La and a lot of these developers being involved with new criminal charges and new civil charges all over the country. I mean, I'm not sure there's another developer involved with public housing at this time in the United States that is in more trouble for good reason. And they're all sitting around because they're trying to complete the steal as if I don't see that. I don't see that. I don't see that the buildings are running like slums, that people are dying in them, that the services aren't being provided, and that we're giving all this money away, and that they're getting prosecuted civilly and criminally up and down the United States, eastern and western seaboards, right? Like we don't see that because we gotta finish a big steal.
That's right. Well, this is Soldiers Home stream number 2. If you have any more comments or questions, drop them now before we hop off. We will definitely do another one, I think, right, as often as we can and as often as there's updates in the press and people would have questions or potentially be misled in a lot of these things. I know I've seen press that said the veterans won a settlement. I mean, I heard anchors saying those kind of things. There's really been zero settlement. There is zero settlement. It's just some tough talk with some a town center ordered and a bunch of delayed sheds, bigger sheds, I suppose, on undesirable plots, right?
Yeah, and not only it's not just tough talk too, because whether intentional or not, it's also divisive, right? It puts people and veterans against each other, right? Well, no, they said this. No, they didn't. No, they, and then everybody gets in passionate arguments, and then these people aren't talking to those people, and that helps them divide and conquer through disinformation. So that's another reason why I think it's important to begin a regular as many times as it takes, as many times as anyone really wants to listen. We need to fact check all of this news that comes out as it does. And we need to make sure, too, that we have a public record here where we're showing if you're a lawyer in this case, if you're the judge, and you think that we are not telling the truth, or you think that we're wrong, you can always say it, but you haven't yet.
Absolutely. That's totally true. I'm going to share. I got it working, actually. So if you go to endveteranhomeless.com, it forwards you to this link tree. The other thing I can do is, that 1,000 page document you sent, that we've been reviewing, I could put that link on here.
I think that'd be
And I'm
great.
actually also going to put the streams on here. So I'm going to kind of build this out. The streams currently aren't on here, but in that document is not. But as soon as this ends, I will add it. And I want to let people know that they can get to this by going to endveteranhomeless.com. And this top email, that if you're on your phone and you open it up, email to Save the Soldiers Home, particularly an iPhone, it opens up your email browser. It has the email totally filled in. You're more than welcome to edit it, but it has a lot of this verbiage that would resolve these issues. Is there anything else you want to say? Thank you for everyone who's watching. Thank you for everyone who's commenting, sharing, engaging. It's definitely needed. Public awareness is absolutely instrumental in getting this resolved. Anything else you want to say, Ryan?
Thank you for the opportunity to do this. I really appreciate it. I'm glad that somebody's listening.
Yeah, I'll read these quick comments here. It says, the developers, Alfred Arion, the developers are charging our veterans 30, 40, 50% of their income, millions and billions of tax dollars. Stop stealing our land, he says. Ruthless has a question. If the veterans are suing the VA, doesn't that include the VA police? Were any items introduced about vehicle dwelling, personal property seizures, or did that occur after the complaint?
Yeah. No, because the way that the law works, for very bad and very good reasons at the same time, federally, is you can't directly, the way it works right now in laws, you can't directly sue the federal government itself or a federal government agency, or not in the way that you think you would. It has to be done in a fashion of directly suing people who are public officials in the federal government, and for many intents and purposes, it's kind of almost the same as suing the agency itself. But since in this case they have a civil suit that is suing the Secretary of the VA and a bunch of the VA GLHS directors, it would not, at least not directly or necessarily, be considered against the VA police department, because it's not like suing the VA PD chief or anything like that. And if I remember correctly, also the VA PD is set up in a way to where they're under the jurisdiction of like their own department from DC. So technically, I think they don't even have to listen to what VA GLHS directors would ask them to do, which, by the way, in the past, I've been thankful for it, even though I do understand there's a lot of bad shit that's happened with VA PD. But I'll give you one example. Stephen Braverman a couple of years ago ordered the former VA police chief to open up all the gates all day long to the soldiers' home and start letting all the Brentwood and Westwood traffic cut through and start using it as a thoroughfare. And that police chief said, no, I'm not going to do that. That's illegal. And they got into a big argument. And the police chief said, you can go fuck yourself. I don't have to take orders from you because we get our orders from headquarters. He was correct. And Braverman couldn't do anything about it. That chief did end up resigning or moving on somewhere else, but I guess that would be an example of that. So I think that if you wanted to sue over a matter of the VAPD directly, you would have to sue something like a chief of the VAPD or something like that.
All right, that's a good point. Well, that's good. I think, as I said, this stream will stay live on YouTube, Kick, and X. So you'll be able to share the link on those platforms. And if you're watching on any of the platforms, make sure to set the alert so that you get notified for Soldiers Home stream number 3. I want to appreciate y'all for watching, sharing, and that's it. And it concludes